Hey everybody, welcome back once again to Tips from the Server Room. This is episode number 134, recorded May the 12th, 2018. I'm your host Jack, and once again I'll be guiding you into, through, and back out of the worlds of systems administration, network administrations, and all fields of IT. Please check out my website, and I hope you do, at tipsfromtheserverroom.com, where you can comment on these shows. If you have any questions or ideas for future shows, please email me. And you can simply email me at jack@tipsfromtheserverroom.com or jackstechcorner@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and it's at Technoman. Please check out the video for this show. And if you do, please subscribe to the channel. They can be found at 42Technoman. That's the number 4, the number 2, Technoman, or you can search for Jack's Tech Corner. A lot of easy ways to find me. You can also find me, this is also kind of picked up or syndicated across many different networks, and definitely on iTunes and TuneIn Radio. So you can also go to your Alexa and say, Alexa, play podcast Tips from the Server Room. And there you have it. You will have the podcast there, and you'll be able to listen to it through Alexa. Folks, it's been a very, very busy week, a very daunting week, and a very challenging week for me, to say the very least. We're looking at work. We don't know if our, I'm going to bring it up here now today anyway, if our contracts are going to be extended. I don't know if I'll be laid off at the end of June. So I am looking for you folks, for anybody out there that needs any assistance, remote assistance. If you need me to fly out to wherever you may be in the United States, of course, I kind of want to stay to the States. Let me know. We can work out some kind of pricing structure. I can definitely fly out there and help you out with any servers or networking issues you may have, or really anything else that, you may have a contract job. Maybe you have a programming job that you have out there that you may want to be satisfied. By all means, get in touch with me for that. Or I can also train your office staff. I can do trainings in Microsoft Office and many other applications out there that I can train. And most of those are remote trainings, so it works out very, very well. So I am looking for your help in this. So at this point, I would have to ask, please don't forget my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/jackstech or /tips from the server room. You might want to check that out. I will have a link with that in the show notes. So if you want to subscribe to this show, maybe help a guy out, that wouldn't be a bad thing right now. Because I'm so far on the fence, I don't know what's going to happen. And I do want to throw that out there for you. If you're in the Carolinas areas, the South Carolina area in specific, we've been looking at Port Mill, South Carolina, at different job opportunities. So that may be something. Or in the Pittsburgh region, hopefully not in the city. I'm trying to stay out of the city of Pittsburgh, because if you've ever driven that, you will know that's absolutely a horrible drive. It's to play the worst thing you want to do every day of the week, especially, at my age. But so I'm throwing it out there to you. If you need any help, by all means, please let me know. We can work out some kind of relatively decent pricing on that for remote services. So folks, today I wanted to talk a little bit about cleaning up AD. And is there an easy way to clean up and remove computers that are no longer used in Active Directory? Well, folks, this could be a painstaking, always time-consuming chore. You go into AD, your Active Directory, and you begin removing computers one by one. I found that this takes the most time, especially when you're removing hundreds of computers at a time. And why does this happen? Well, in a school district like I work for a lot of different school districts, we have many, many, many different computers, and, they have an end of life, right? Just like I'm sure even in your business, there's end of life computers that just are no longer there. And what happens is those computers get stuck into Active Directory. And, so you're trying to use their SCCM, you're trying to push out software packages, and there's computers no longer there that you're trying to deal with that you shouldn't have to deal with. And to me, that's a huge drawback. Now, I was at a conference recently, and I brought this issue up to other techies out there. And I said, look, this is a problem we've been having. And the one gentleman I was working with, I happened to be a moderator of a roundtable called Best Practices of Microsoft. I was kind of skeptical going in. I was kind of nervous and kind of scared. And that morning, before I was going into this class to sit down to be a moderator of the roundtable, I pulled up the shared document. They did a shared Google Doc. I pulled that document up, and I started looking at them thinking, all they did was they took what people wanted to know about Microsoft from their registrations, and they gave those to us. And I thought, man, there's no order to this whatsoever. And I thought I needed to clean this up a little bit. I was so glad that I woke up at 4:30 in the morning in a hotel room, because I'm sitting at the little table. They don't really have a desk in this particular hotel room, but I was sitting at this little table. And remember now, the conference that I was at was called Brainstorm. And there's two I found out. There's Brainstorm Wisconsin, and that's once a year. You might want to look that up. And there's Brainstorm Sandusky. That's where I was at, and that's where I was teaching this, I guess it was the past weekend. And it was extremely nice. It was a really well laid out conference, and I would really suggest you go, even if you're not in a school district, because the topics that are discussed are all around technology, and there's every bit of technology there that you can think of. So even if you're that person out there that is working in the field in a small office building, or you're working in a field somewhere, I often say this show is partly for the accidental techie out there. This conference will give it to you. It's a very great conference, and it's for techies by techies, and it's called Brainstorm. Very much recommend you hitting it next year. It's through this year. I believe it's over already this year. Pretty sure. I'm not sure when the Wisconsin one is, but the Sandusky one obviously is over. So we were talking to this gentleman, and he said, there is a GPO. There's a group policy object that you can go through and you can find it, and it will state in there if a computer has not been logged into for X amount of days, that computer can be removed from Active Directory. So I am going to be looking that up on our network here and finding that and putting that in, because I think that would definitely clear up this whole problem of these rogue computers out there and this stuff sitting out there all this time on your Active Directory. I kind of believe it's a security problem, because it is there. But if nothing else, it's a management problem, because you're trying to say even if you want to push an application through GPO, and you select a bunch of computers and you say, I'm going to push this application to these computers. Well, if it's like our network that I'm currently working with, and I've only been there for 2 years, this was a short-term contract deal, but if you're pushing this stuff out, you're pushing it to serial numbers, you're pushing it to names that aren't really named properly. And that's another thing I always tell my partners with: name the computers properly. If you're in a school district, maybe it'll be student 1, student 2, I don't know. Something that that computer is on your network and that is actually functioning. It's always a good idea when you add a computer to your Active Directory that you put the year that you purchased it. And I've just found this over time, because when you go back and you say, look, we have a 3-year rotation, maybe a 5-year rotation, you can actually go in there and pull those computers based on the year. You can say, we just got rid of everything from 2014, 2015, what have you. You can go in there and you can just simply remove those computers, just group them and get them out of there and clean up your AD. Excuse me. It's a very, very important part of your job, is to keep that AD clean. Now, we have been using a We have been using a PowerShell script to remove the computers based on how long they've been inactive. You just open the PS script in the PS editor. If you've never used a PowerScript editor on a Windows 10 computer, I suggest you open it up and look at that. The easiest way to learn scripting is probably the easiest way there is to learn programming is by looking at other people's programs, other people's scripts, and dig down in there and find out, what they're doing, and then you will learn how to write your very own scripts. But you set this for the total number of days you want it to remove. Usually I use 60 days. I feel really safe at 60 days. And then I have a look at my Active Directory after I remove those computers from 60 days. And then what I'll do is I may go back in and redefine that a little bit. I may make it 45 days. And then I may redefine it again and make it 30 days. But I like to remove those computers based on a set amount of days. You got to be careful when you're working with a school because you remember we're closed down for roughly 2.5 months in the summer. And if we go in there at the beginning of school year and we say remove all the computers based on 60 days, it pretty much removes all the student laptops because they're not there to log into those machines and you're going to have a problem. So if you're in a school, remember to be able to go in there. I would do this after school begins. We usually do it right around the Christmas break area. So you're looking at December. By then you have a really good idea of what computers are being used and what are not being used. At that point, I would set my script to 30 days and just blast those old computers out of there and get rid of that stuff. Now, since we are on the subject of scripting in PowerShell, let's talk a little bit about automation. Now, automation, there are 100 of tasks, maybe even thousands of tasks that we technologists do either every day or yearly. This is where the power of shell scripting, the PowerShell scripting, really comes in handy to get those tasks done quickly. And, it's a repetitive task. So is it a repetitive task that you have to, really do from ground up every single year? Now, we do keep yearly notes. I do suggest that for any company out there. Even when I worked at a small for-profit company, I created a yearly note that said, like, every June, I had to do this, this, and this. Every month, you have to check your servers and make sure you're up to date on your security patches. Just to always have that check. Even for my switches, I do that. Just to check every so often, like once a month, once every 2 months, for any new ISOs that come out for my switches. And we had that discussion at the conference also, and I thought that was a really good discussion. I am the kind of guy that when the new ISO comes out, I kind of like to upgrade all my switches to that new ISO. Now, gentlemen in the audience, because I taught a networking class, I actually taught layer 2, layer 3 networking. And in that class, he goes, now, wait, Jack. He said, I don't think I would go with the latest, greatest, ISO every single time. What he does, his policies are, when an ISO comes out, what he likes to do is to go back to the ISO before that. So he's always one ISO or ISO basically below the current ISO because he knows that if there's any problems with it, it was patched, it was fixed up, and it's good to go. That is probably a really good policy. I mean, absolutely that's a good policy, something that you should think about. And like I said, I've been tending to upgrade mine. As soon as one comes out, man, I blast it through my network and pull it on my switches. So it's probably something I really have to think about. But I found a link that I'm going to put in the show notes for this particular show about starting writing PS scripts or PowerShell scripting. And, years ago, even now, I still use some basic batch scripting, the .bats, and they still work. And I still use a lot of the ones I've written in the past. I've written a lot of Visual Basic programs that help me to automate everything in my network and stuff like importing users and all that kind of stuff. And what I do with those is I set it up to import. It builds a batch file, and I run that on my server to import all those people in AD, and it still works. But, you got to get with the times. I'm trying to learn more and more PowerShell scripting, and this will definitely help. I am planning on, if you go to tipsfromtheserverroom.com, there's a link on the top that says scripts. Some of those scripts are stuff that I found from different websites that we use. And this particular script I am planning on putting in there, so hopefully I'll have it in there. If you don't see it, definitely email me at jackstechcorner@gmail.com and let me know that you want it, and I can definitely send it to you and let you have that script. And that's the one that will remove the computers based on set amount of days. Very simple to use. Now, as I said here, another way to automate your workflow is by learning some basic programming. And I talk to so many techs out there, and they are just so far removed or scared of programming, or just shut a dead ear to programming. Now, I use Visual Studio, and I program, as I said, in Visual Basic to create little programs that allow me to do things like I already talked about, was importing users. I've also written programs that allow me to create a large amount of user folders with the shared names and the permissions on the server. You can get a free copy of Visual Studio Express Community Edition. Just search for that on the internet, and I'm sure you'll find it. It's the Visual Studio Express Community Edition. Now, even if you've never programmed before, it's not hard to learn just by simply watching some YouTube videos. And, YouTube is one of those great teachers out there that not a lot of people use. And you folks know that I do teach at jtclearning.com. There's a Windows Server 2012 R2 course up there right now. And I'm working on a Windows Server 2016 course to also go up there. There's a lot of students in that course. And granted, a lot of people email me and say, well, Jack, look, I could just go to YouTube and learn the same thing. You can absolutely go to YouTube. You can learn a lot of the same things that I teach in that course. The only thing nice about my courses are that it starts from installation to administration and everything in between, from setting the server up, from first installing it to, it installs basically as a workstation, right? We have to turn it into an Active Directory. We have to promote it to an Active Directory controller. We have to make sure DNS is on, DHCP is running, if you're running it on the same server. And that's where the courses come in really, really handy. And then somebody emailed me one time and said, Jack, your courses are too cheap. They must be garbage. You can't sell that course for $250. I'm like, it's my way of paying it forward to you guys out there that want to learn this stuff. And I've taken a lot of courses, and I've paid, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500 for courses. This is my way to pay it forward, once again, to you folks to, allow you to learn at a lower cost. I don't think everything should be a very high cost. And believe me, if you want to pay more, I can raise it to more. I can raise it to $2,500. If you think that's going to make it a better course, by all means, let me know, and I will definitely do that for you. But anyway, and of course, let's not forget Google. And Google, when we search for AD automation or networking automation, you will find countless tools that will help you through the daily grind of your server and networking administration. Some free and some are paid. Now, we've purchased applications that save us a huge amount of times. And remember the basic understanding of TCO, the total cost of ownership. That's one thing that we look at a lot for budgeting purposes, and we also look at it a lot for our daily work. If I can find an application or something that's going to allow me to be able to automate something on my network, or if I can find a program that's going to help me automate a task on my servers, by all means, that's going to help. Just like I said about the little program that I wrote that imports all of our users. If we had to do that by hand, every year we have a class, and we have a small school district. So every year we have a class of 90, let's say 80 to 90 students. If you had to put those in AD one at a time, be careful with misspelling. Be careful with, getting their first name, last name right. And be careful with setting that temporary password. Because, you can go back, and when the students arrive in our schools in August, they go log in and they can't. And next thing you know, you're fighting with AD. You're sitting there with the laptop going, okay, Johnny Jr., I will get you set up and get you operational. But able to use the Visual Basic program that I wrote, it is very simple for me to pull those kids out of what we call the SIS, or the Student Information System. You may have something with your HR department. I'm sure your HR department has something in there that maintains all of the employees in your business. We are able to pull those out. We know the spelling's all correct and everything. Run that through my program, run the batch file, and import all those students, and we don't have to worry about typos. So yes, it's automated. So yes, if you can buy something, even if you buy something that's, we have $50 tools that we use, and we have $500 tools that we use. Do I pay $5,000 for tools? I have not paid really anything like that for them, so it's based on your company size. It's based on your total cost of ownership. It's based on your manpower. In schools, we generally run most schools with 2 or 3 people to manage everything. You're talking 25, about 2,500 nodes running. You're talking all the switches, you're talking all the servers, and you usually have 2 people running all that. So we have to learn automation. It's huge for us. And maybe maybe you work for, we have a bank here in Pittsburgh, PNC Bank, and I understand PNC Bank has a whole entire floor of technologists. So maybe they do have one guy that's just changing passwords on Active Directory. It'd be a little bit of a boring job, but I'm sure they do. And that's what they pay him to do. So does he need to automate? He probably doesn't want to automate because he would like to maintain a job. So that's just something to think about. But yeah, automation is really good. Total cost of ownership is really, really important. Now, it's not just about getting something done quicker. It's also about saving the man hours and having the crews to do the same task. So I often bring this up to people like CEOs, superintendents, about, buying a piece of software. I said, look, we can do it by hand. Absolutely. But if you're paying somebody, if you're paying somebody $25 or $75 an hour or $150 an hour, and you're going to use that person for 8 hours for a project, wouldn't it be better time spent to have that project, that 8-hour project, shrunk into 1 hour? That's where we start seeing our TCO, or total cost of ownership, is to be able to shrink that down. Now, if you do consulting work like I do, like I've offered up to everybody out there listening to this podcast, and don't ever be afraid to call in another set of eyes. So many people get to the point where they're so, scared about their job. They may have insecurities. Just because you would call in a consultant, you would call me in and you'd say, hey, Jack, how about look at our firewall? We're going to go through the firewall, make sure the config file is up to date, and make sure, it makes sense. And I'm reading that config file, so you're paying for that. You're not going to lose your job because you called in somebody to have another set of eyes. It's just not going to happen. So that's just something you want to be able to have out there, and you want to have that opportunity. I've used consultants many times to come in or to help me with something, because we can't, again, be experts at everything. I know you're supposed to be. People will say, oh, Joe, we hired you to be the technology director of XYZ company. Joe, you should be able to you should be able to put new wire on the toaster. You should be able to run all the networking cables. You should know everything there is to know about firewalls, switches, Windows 10, Windows Server 2016, Linux, Unix, Mac, iPads. Sometimes you can't. You just can't be an expert at everything. And that whole thing that we used to talk about, jack of all trades, master of none, that is basically bullshit, okay? I'm just laying it out there for you, just straight up. It's BS, because you don't want to be, a master of none. Folks, I want to be a master of 50% of those. And the reason I want to be a master of 50% of those is because that's what makes you marketable as a technologist. You have to go in and say, look, I am an expert, or not and I don't like the word expert. That blows my mind too, but I am extremely knowledgeable on Exchange and cloud backup or Azure. Those are your marketable selling points. Yes, if you know things about other things, that's cool, right? We can probably even market that, right? Knowing things of other things like, Internet of Things. But, I don't mean to go on a rant there, but be very, very careful. You're not an expert of everything. Don't play to be. Don't pretend to be. And if you're a technologist and a network person, don't ever give your client or give your boss a line of BS and throw a bunch of technical jargon in there. Because I know it makes you feel good, right? It makes you think that he thinks, oh, that guy's really smart. He's so smart. He knows all them technology names and all them acronyms. No. You start to look like a fool. And everybody says, you are a fool. So don't ever do that. Go in and tell them. When I talk about bandwidth, I've always talked about water hoses. People understand the size of a garden hose, and they understand the size of a fire hose, right? They understand that stuff. So why not tell them based on that? Or make it in the, when I talk about how much data or how much packets, something like that, I'm putting through a certain wire, right? If I'm asking for fiber and I have copper, I don't tell them, the fiber holds more packets, more data transfer than, because they don't know what that means. But if you tell them, look, if you're going into Pittsburgh and you're going through the Fort Pitt tunnels and there's 2 lines of traffic, would it not work better if there was 8 lines of traffic? Wouldn't you get more cars through there? They're like, yep, absolutely. I understand that. They pay for the fiber. You have to, and I'm not even saying dumb it down. You have to put it, my wife always says it's in plain English. Folks, I write for a website called jackstechcorner.com. And I told you that used to be a newspaper article at one time. And when I wrote for the paper, it would take me 30 or 40 minutes to write a column. It would take my wife almost 3 hours to edit it. And it's not because I'm a bad speller or I'm bad at, writing. It was just that she was trying to make it so people would understand, because I was putting too much technical BS in there, and I can't do that. So it's just something to think about. And I do still write for jackstechcorner.com. You'll see some occasional articles in there that I write. Recently, I think I told you guys and girls out there that I did a full week of using a Chromebook as a technologist. And I put in there every day, what I found and what I came up with. And just to see if you can use it on a daily basis. We're giving it to these kids out there, our students. And we're telling them it's the latest, greatest thing in technology. You have a Chromebook. And they're like, I don't want a Chromebook. I can't load Tank Commander. So I wanted to find out, can you actually use a Chromebook day to day? Because why do we give the kids a Chromebook and then we buy ourselves a Mac? I don't know. Or we have Windows 10 laptops? I don't know. There's really, honestly, now that you can load Android apps on the Chromebooks, make sure you're getting the Chromebook that can do that. I understand there's some that can't, and I don't know the models. But, it's basically just, I don't know, it's just a null point anymore. The one thing I can tell you about Chromebooks, and I said this at the conference to many people, we have to get out. If you're in a school, listen to this, okay? Listen to this and pay close attention to what I'm telling you. We have to get out of this stereotypical bullcrap that we're in right now. Now, there's a tablet computer. If I say tablet, what do you think of? Do you think of iPad? Do you think of Android? I don't know. It's based on what you are using, right? We don't say it's an Android tablet. It's a Linux tablet. It's it's an iPad. Now, people do refer to most things as iPads. Believe it or not, you can give somebody an Android tablet and they'll be like, I got an iPad. They don't really know. It's just, they don't know. That's just simple facts. But what I'm telling you is get out of this stuff, calling a Chromebook. It makes me want to throw up all over the place. And the reason I say that is there's a keyboard, there's a screen, there's a touchpad. People, it's a laptop. There's a screen, there's a keyboard, and there's a trackpad. It's a laptop, all right? So just remember that. If you work in schools, just say, look, we're replacing those laptops with these laptops. Leave it go at that. As soon as you say Chromebooks, like, I don't want that junk in my school, it just doesn't matter. We never, ever, and I've never, ever had a Linux laptop. I've never taken a Linux laptop and handed somebody, say, this is a Linux laptop. I just said it's a laptop. It's a laptop. I don't call Dell, Lenovo, HP, Acer, Asus. I don't tell you it's an Asus laptop, Acer laptop. I don't tell you the name. It's a laptop. Just call it a laptop and let it go. Is there some limitations? It's getting to be very far and few in between, especially now that they allow you to load Android apps. And now that you can load, you can use Office 365 on anything, absolutely anything. Well, folks, I think I've worn out my welcome here. I think I've talked about as long as I can talk today, and I hope I've given you some great information on scripting. Please remember to help me out there. I haven't been doing it lately, but I am going to post my Patreon link. If you can sign up for that, a few bucks here or there will definitely help me out. Will get me through this spell. If I do become, let's say, departed from a job, I will definitely be able to, have some cash flow somewhere. So maybe you can help me out, or by all means, call me for any consulting work. I'll get back in touch with you right away, and we can definitely talk. Also, folks, remember my Amazon link. That definitely will help out also. If you're buying anything from Amazon anyway, you might as well use my Amazon link. A few dollars will come back to the show, and it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And, especially this time of my life, this weird influctuation. So if you go to tipsfromtheserverroom.com, deactivate your ad blockers, and then go in there, and you will definitely see the Amazon link. Click on that. I usually add the stuff to my shopping cart, go back, click on my link, go back out, and then very simply click on that link and make your purchase. So folks, thank you very much for listening, downloading, and subscribing to the show. I do appreciate that very, very much. And spread the word around out there. If anybody else may need help, may need some assistance, especially remote, or if it's a big, big project, definitely I can come on site within any state within the lower 48, let's say. Not that I don't love Hawaii. If anybody in Hawaii listening to this, I love your state. I wanted to move there. My wife said no because it's an island. But we will be back to visit Hawaii someday, I hope. All right, take care, everybody, and I will talk to you next time on Tips from the Server Room. Bye-bye for now.